Right. Happy hump day. Happy hump day. Oh, so what I've been doing over the past few days, week-ish, whatever it is reviewing some old replays of some sim racing that I did. What will be next month will be 24 years since I started doing it. Makes me sound really, really old. I am really, really old. I feel really, really old. So we've just been reviewing some of the first ever online sim races I did, which has been eye-opening because obviously I'm seeing my racecraft and my lack of it. I've been seeing it how I've maybe improved. So I've been obviously critiquing stuff that I've done in the past, and I've also had alongside me at times my what was the race steward or the moderator of the series that I ran in, to give his input on what whether he would have made different decisions depending on whether he'd actually caught some of the incidents that happened, because I don't think a race steward can watch the entire race from every single person's viewpoint. It's just not enough time in the day, so it has to just report on what gets reported to the stewards. So but it's been fun just looking at some of the stuff. So the game that I'm playing in is Grand Prix Legends. So I recently got it working again, and so we've been looking at what was the first season that I ran in a league called UKGPL, and it was season 3 of the championship, which started back in November in the year 2000. We've done rounds 1 up until round 10. So you can see the certain number of tracks that we've been looking at. Of course, this doesn't work with a scroll wheel, does it? Because it's 90s software. So, started in Kyalami, been to Zandvoort, Spa, Rouen, Silverstone, Nordschleife, Mossport, Monza, and Watkins Glen. And the last two we're going to review tonight are going to be Mexico and a 60s track called Solitude, which I think is used somewhat now. Never was a Grand Prix track, but it's a challenging track. So I'm going to look at the server replay so we can see everything that happened, because obviously Grand Prix Legends back then had for optimization purposes, and because this was 24 years ago when technology wasn't as advanced as it is now, so you only saw a few cars ahead and a couple of cars behind. Obviously when you see the server replay you can see everything, because the server keeps track of everybody. Now normally I review these races depending on what the results are, and obviously see the stewards' decisions that were made then. So all of the archives are held on our website called simracing.org.uk. Just by chance, let's just double checking if it wasn't there. It isn't there. Just by chance, their server is down for maintenance, so we can't review the the details for now. So we'll just look at what happened, and hopefully by the time we finish the reviews of the replays, it'll maybe be back up. Who knows? Who knows? So yeah, let's start with Mexico. Now, if you haven't played Grand Prix Legends, and you haven't any experience of these 60s tracks, what you'd have to bear in mind is you're basically running on very narrow tracks. Not a lot of runoff, lots of hard things to hit. We normally go chase cam at the start of the race. We're running in obviously 1967 Grand Prix cars. What I'm also doing, these tracks are heavily upgraded since when we ran them in the 2000s. So they didn't look like this when I drove it, and nor did the cars look like this when I drove it, because I'm using an upgraded version of Grand Prix Legends, graphically and audibly, I guess, as well. So let's turn up the game a little so I can hear what I'm doing. Or try, anyway. There we go. Right, so I can't see that you can probably see my mouse pointer there. So see the flagman up there. Can I actually see the flagman from where I am? Not really. So I can't guarantee that I got a good start. So I'm starting. So it's one. I wonder if I can actually, because it doesn't actually show the positions. Oh, I'm starting quite far back. So in first at the moment is Phil Barbier. Second is Kev Hammett. Third is Duncan Hogbin. Fourth is Jukka Wakinen. Michael Bell is fifth. Yeah, I went the wrong way. Michael Bell is fifth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. Sixth is Paul Villiers in a Ferrari. Andy Straw is seventh in a Lotus. Eighth is Derek Jones in a Cooper. Ninth is Jacob Schmidt in a Ferrari. 10th is Joe Murphy in a BRM. 11th is me in a Ferrari. So we're not. So there's 20 laps of Mexico. Let's see what my start was like. So it's a bit crowded. So we're going to the inside for a gap, I'm guessing. Getting the run on someone. I guess I was less confident into turn one. Whoa! Not confident on the brakes whatsoever. Wandering all over the road. Oh, we found like we passed one. That was a bit of a shock. Passed another. So Lotus is slow on the right. We're going to take him. I seem to be very tentative at the start of this race. Let's change it to the... So I don't know if that was a move. Oh, dearie me, what did I do? I mean, I was nowhere near overtaking him, was I? I'm going to get a slap on the wrist for this in the Yeah, I'm coming in way too hot. I mean, Yeah, that definitely hits him, doesn't it? Although it doesn't look like it does. If you look at the contact, it's a netcode thing. It's not far off. But I mean, I had no business going up the inside there, did I? Really? I should have just waited. So that's on me. Look how far back I am. So I basically feel like I'm like not slowing down enough, and then just. I mean, I made the apex, but I don't think he really had opportunity to see me. So do I just go off scot-free there? Maybe I thought that that I wasn't the cause of that accident, but can't imagine that the other driver was very pleased with me. So we're in 12th. Well, that's what it says anyway. So there'd obviously be no pit stops in this race at all. Into the last turn. I'm sure Karma's going to hit me. This obviously means that I'm quite far away from anybody else. So it's a 2-minute lap, or probably just under when it gets to a fast lap. Let's see if I'm less tentative coming into turn 1 this time. Still a bit tentative. I mean, I'm looking at the adverts on the outside of the track. They're not necessarily the adverts that would have been in Mexico, I don't think. It looks like someone's just grabbed the adverts from a modern adverts, whereas they're not. Like Pepsi wouldn't have been that advert, would it? Back in the 60s. And I mean, would it have advertised Pepsi on the side of the track? I don't know. Well, that corner seems to be a bit of a curse. I also did try and install a plugin that should be the head of the driver should be leaning into the turns, but I'm guessing that the patch DXE it didn't work. I'll have to do it again when I. It's either that or it doesn't work if it's not the player. I don't know. I'm not too sure. We're pretty much out on our own, so 152.6. We're in 8th place. I got a feeling this is going to be a very lonely race. I mean, if I got reported for that incident, I'm probably going to get a slap on the wrist, because I was definitely too late on the brakes. Now, obviously, bear in mind that I think when I started this series, just to give you a kind of a time reference, in the year 2000, I was just in my last year of college. So we would have been using 56k modems. You know, no broadband, nothing like that. The latter half of this season, I think I probably would be living in my first flat, which would mean I'd be on broadband. And I think the hardware I was using, I can't remember when I moved to a Logitech G25, but I was using probably a Microsoft Force Feedback wheel for the majority of racing. Grand Prix Legends. And I remember that force feedback wasn't really a thing back then. I can't get it to work now on my latest PC. So I can imagine that it wasn't very easy to get it working back then either, 24 years ago. Because I just found it a bit I think I tried it a couple of times and it just felt like a distraction. Whereas I obviously can't do without it now, because you feel so much weight transfer and just the traction. I don't know how I drove this game without it, but I did somehow. Oh, it's a recovering car. Well, that took us by surprise, I'm guessing, because we were braking there. And let's go to. So there was who was recovering? So Duncan Hogbin was recovering. So coming down here, it's always a bit difficult to braking and turn at the same time. So we can see him, and Duncan pops out onto the racing line with no momentum whatsoever. He's not really got too much of a choice. I'm reckoning in hindsight maybe he should have used the runoff and not kind of plonked himself on the racing line. But generally, he would have only seen where he could see me a little bit there. I'm in his blind spot for a little bit, and it was just a spin. So he must have just got on the. Yeah, okay. He was reacting to a spin ahead. So we see someone spin ahead. Spins in sympathy. So a couple of cars go past. So he misses the polo. So at this point, he can't see me until now. So he's not really got a chance to get out of the way, I don't think. So that scared the living shit out of me, I'd imagine. So I took to the grass. So it's like he was pretty much nearly at a standstill there. So I can't slow down enough to do anything about it. So 7th place now. So that's closed up the field ahead a little bit. Lap 4 of 20. So we're using all of the track. Finally got the hairpin correct, but we've still got a little bit of oversteer. And obviously bear in mind as well, back then, you know, there would be kind of you wouldn't be using like all these HUDs that you have now with being able to tell where everybody is on track and all of your lap times and stuff like that. You're pretty bare bones. You were out on your own for 40 minutes or so, just racing against yourself. I mean, you knew from a pit board what position you were in and the time ahead and time behind, but you only knew that when you crossed the line. So I mean, I've looked at a non-upgraded version of Grand Prix Legends, and it's bland in comparison. The modding community absolutely was stellar with bringing this up to a different graphical standard. So we're going to take this wide. That Lotus is catching me, it seems. And there is a version of this track for R Factor 2. And I was actually thinking of taking some of my lap times from Grand Prix Legends. I think that I'm only missing one track from what I remember. The only track that isn't in R Factor 2 is Watkins Glen for the 60s layout. So I can take the lap times and see if I can possibly beat them. I mean, it's going to be completely different types of tracks. and the cars are gonna have a little bit of a different performance, but that might be good fun just to have just to see, you know, today's standard of well, could you call it today's standard? Putting in lap times 24 years later, because I couldn't get my ooh, we've gone a bit wide. I couldn't get Grand Prix Legends drivable. I couldn't get force feedback working, and I couldn't get my shifters on my wheel working, even though it's on the same device. As the, you know, it detected all the axis of my pedals and my steering wheel, but it didn't detect the paddles. So, and I mean, it feels completely bland. Well, I mean, it would do if I could get force feedback working. It's hard to feel like, particularly a racing game if you can't feel the car. And I played like older racing games, trying to get back into them, but you're given such little information through the wheel. You wonder how you ever drove it, you know? I'm making all kinds of mistakes, which is who is it that's catching me? So it's Andy Straw in the Lotus. He's throwing his car around. Oh, well, let's pay to that. Well, that would put me down to 9th then. So I guess that's karma from before. I don't know whether that's actually made. Is that? No. So the person that I collided with is still down in. He's down in 11th. Well, we cut to Joe Barsley just going over the polos, we used to call them. I used to hate those things. But this, if you kind of lay this layout over the modern version of Mexico, because this is what they run on nowadays, it's very, very similar. Some of the corner radiuses are a little different. Obviously the track is wider in places and stadium section is completely different, but it stayed in this state up until, I mean, I don't think they changed too much. They changed the first section in the 80s and 90s, the first chicanes, but the rest of it kind of stayed quite similar. Let's see if we can catch this Lotus. I mean, a lot of this has been quite eye-opening because there's been most of these races I've gone in blind because I've basically not known how the races finish. There's been a couple of races where I definitely knew about them because of particular incidents and stuff, but the rest of it I'm not so sure. It's quite funny in the background there, that big dome there, it's under construction in the 1960s, but it's fully complete. Obviously nowadays, that's a nice touch. So I'm looking at the adverts on the side of the... I mean, by today's standards as well, when you look at like the R Factor 2 version, the amount of trackside objects that are available this looks bland in comparison, you know. If you look out into the distance and you're just like, there's just nothing there. But now, obviously 20 years later or so, when that track was created, and I have been meaning to take a track and use it as like a test bed for. Oh, we were so close to the end of that Armco, and use it as like a test bed for learning how to texture things. I mean, if I had hit the end of that Armco, the Armco would have gone straight between the wheel and the body of the car, and I wouldn't have been getting out of there. So that, again, that Pepsi advert, it just doesn't fit with this era. And I mean, even nowadays, when I'm doing my current races, I'd always find it. Oh, he's clattered off the barrier there. He's struggling. I always find it easier to chase when you have a carrot in front of you. So it looks like the Lotus has some legs there. I think it's trying to break the toe. Either that, he's trying to see if there's anyone behind in his mirrors. They seem to be better on the brakes into turn one. So we're back up to 8th now, it says. So best lap time of the pole man is a 1:49.1. My best lap time is a 1:49.9. But my last lap time is a 1:51. But I'm definitely I'm putting I believe it was Andy Straw under a lot of pressure. It's missing apexes all over the place, but the Lotus Power just can compensate. And I always, for most of this season, and I don't know what car I take for the last round, but every single round minus one was in the Ferrari. I only took a Cooper in Cooper Silverstone. There was one round I took a different car, but I took the Ferrari. Not particularly a Ferrari fan at this point. It's the sound of it. It just screams. Oh, we've got a car off there. Who is that? That's Jakob Schmidt. So let's switch to TV cam, because we've got a car in front and behind. And I remember vividly that I was in this league for a number of years, let's say. I did leave the league kind of a bit disillusioned. And over the number of years, you kind of get to know who you. Oh, he did finally overdo it. Either that or he's blown the engine or something, because he's pulled to the side there. No, he did spin it. Yeah. You. Oh, I. Oh no! I over revved it and popped it. the hurriedness to get going, I just over revved the Ferrari and bang. And that Brabham just says, thank you very much. So in this game, obviously, you have the opportunity to reset your car, which unfortunately puts you on a full fuel load again. So you've got a heavy car. And we're at half distance, so I've basically got 20 laps of fuel with 10 laps to go. So is that Michael Bell? It's Michael Bell. He started in front of me, so I don't know what he's doing back here. So, look at that. That was a bit tight, wasn't it? Could hang on. I think the Eagle's got a lot. Yeah, look at this. Straight line speed. I went to defend. Couldn't do a damn thing. So you create friendships and things because you race against these people week after week. Looks like that Eagle might have clattered the barrier though. No, he's fine. You create friendships and camaraderies and things, but there are certain drivers that you drive against that you kind of rub up against. Not physically. I mean, like your personalities don't match, or you have incidents in the races and things that leave a little bit of a sour taste in your mouth. So I remember a few rivalries, let's say, I had during the seasons. But those will become apparent in seasons to come. My first season was basically just learning how to race with other people because I'd never ever raced online with anybody in any of the previous sim racing games I played. So my history before Grand Prix Legends was the Jeff Cremond Formula 1 games. So by this point, the first game, F1 GP had come out, and then Grand Prix 2 was out. I don't think Grand Prix 3 was even a thing, because I think that got made in the early 2000s. So that was my history of games, but it was always single player. And this was my first ever go at online multiplayer. And I've been doing it ever since. Just in different games as they came out. But this is basically what started it for me. But it's amazing to believe that obviously it was 24 years ago that it was me with probably a wheel strapped to my desk, sitting in a one-bedroom flat. And I mean, at some point, I remember I had someone gifted me like a cockpit they had made out of wood. And I had my G25 strapped to that. Because normally I'd be sitting at a desk with a wheel strapped to my desk. So it's not the most comfortable of driving positions. But you may do. But nowadays, I'm sitting in a sim racing cockpit. And I mean, back then, sim racing wasn't the business that it is now. You didn't have the amount of sim racing peripherals and hardware and stuff like that. There's been a couple of people that kind of only started sim racing a couple of years ago and go, oh, look at all these wheels and all this stuff that I can buy. And you just think, yeah, that wasn't around 25 years ago, you know. Oh, I'm not having too much luck. I mean, that first corner has always been a bit of a pain. Because you're just trying to figure out how much you should brake whilst turning at the same time. So Paul Villiers is behind me, the guy that I collided with earlier in the race. So I'm sure he's not going to be too pleased. And I mean, at this again at this point as well, this race would have been taking place in 2001. So in 2001, I was 22 years old. So you can kind of see maybe a little bit of ego and arrogance comes into incidents and things like that. Nowadays, I would hope that I've grown out of some of that. But and this again is another corner where you're braking around a corner. So two Ferraris, a Ferrari versus a Ferrari. And I mean, the league that I race in as well, called UKGPL, is still going. All these number of years later. I checked out the current season. Oh, we hit another one of those polos. That's karma. And there I am, overtaken. So I checked out the current driver roster. It's obviously a bit sparser now because the game is getting so old that people have moved on to doing other things. They have families. There's a couple of familiar names from people I raced way back. Particularly the guy in front is still racing. I remember that particularly in the season 3, when I'm in Division 5 is the place that I am. I wouldn't say significantly younger, but I was probably on the younger side to most of the people that were racing. That became apparent when we did have a meet-up, and I was a spring chicken compared to all the others. But I think obviously this game attracted like an older generation of racers just because of the content. Younger people just couldn't relate to it, but I related to it because I just loved cars. And at that point liked sim racing games. I just found it fascinating that you had these cars without wings that were like the predecessors to Formula 1 cars. And it had like this game in particular had quite a steep learning curve. I was never fast, I was competent, but never quick. But in this season, I had a win, which actually was my second race. Everything seemed to come together at that second race, and managed to win that one. I remember having a second place. I think I had the chance of winning a couple of races, if not for mistakes. So I was gonna win in France. I was leading, but I accidentally boned it into some barriers. Of course, you can cut that corner quite a lot. a hairpin. And there was also a time in, I mean, I was never close to winning at Watkins Glen, which was the last round. And I do have the VODs highlighted, so you can go back and have a look. I was nowhere near even getting close to the leader. My friend Phil, he just went off into the distance, and I was in quite a lonely second place for the entire race. But I noticed in the replay my engine started spluttering for a lap before the end. I ran out of fuel about 2 corners before the end, and I was so close to losing second place because they were coming onto the main straight just as I crossed the line. Oh, there's Michael Bell. He's had a bit of a problem there. So I was in 10th. I imagine I'm 9th now. I believe that's Michael Bell because I don't think there are any other Eagles in the race. That's an Eagle Westlake. Lap 16 of 20. Ooh, I really had to get out of the away from the rear of his car there. So this is a little bit of a tussle. Let's have a look on board there. So he looks like he's much faster in this back section of the race course, but I'm much quicker at the first half. And unfortunately, you need to be quick on the back half of it because it leads onto the straight. So you're massaging the throttle around here, trying to gauge the grip of how much you can push, because if you understeer, it's just straight up into the Armco. So I'm pushing a lot more in this first half of the lap. I think I've got an Eagle behind me, which is probably not. Let's have a look. So I can't see him, but I can hear him. Oh, I can see him when I turn. So I'm 9th at the moment, with 3 laps to go. So I never would have remembered that I had these battles. Ooh, we braked a bit late there, but you can't capitalise on it because you can't get on the throttle early enough. It's taking all kinds of trips over the grass. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to dive under someone. No, did that corner. Weak onto the straight, which means that Eagle's gonna we're so close to the Polos. I mean, I'm not putting in fast lap times. My best lap was a 1:49.9. I've gone defensive. Oh, he's taking a dive. I would like to... Is he still there? Or... I mean, I did a kind of a... I'd like to see what... So So he dove under me. He opened up the door, so I just bounced back through. So what happens here then? I mean, yeah, maybe I'm up the inside, but you could kind of debate whether he's entitled to the corner too. I'm actually in front. So you could kind of say this is my corner and I have the right to take the racing line. But I think in hindsight, because possibly it was more bravado maybe. I think if I had kind of gone a little bit tighter, you're always scared of these polos. So yeah, a little bit messy. I mean, I don't know how to kind of. The move was on. And I mean, in that particular corner as well, you end up with one line through it. And I mean, I was up the inside. At some point, the person on the outside has to kind of say, I should really be giving up this corner and fight another day, you know? Or he should kind of say whether, you know, there's a car there, I should just maybe not be in this pinch point and just take a trip across the grass, you know? If the stewards see that one, they might give me a slap on the wrist for it. As like unavoidable contact. Or avoidable contact, rather. But it was an opportunistic move. He'd already dived up my inside. But then he opened the door again. And I said, thank you very much. But I mean, he may have been kind of too busy trying to get to the apex of turn 2 that he wouldn't have seen me switch back. So So I mean, Paul ahead he's not been quick. He's in the 151s, and technically so am I, but he's only done a personal best of a 150.8. So I don't know if I actually catch him and pass him at the end of this. Right, it's gone defensive. So I could have fitted into that gap on the outside of the corner. Oh, he's hit the inside. He's made his mistake. Thank you very much. I would like to think that that was my pressure that made him do that. So just don't screw it up now, Neil. You're only up to 6th now? We'll see whether the website's up and running again. I would actually like to archive that website so that if in future it does go down, then I'll have access to the files. So we're watching me ahead now. No, I don't think I'm going to be caught. This is the last lap. But knowing my luck that I boner it. So I think the only penalties you get in this series at this point, because obviously the rules would change in subsequent seasons. The only penalties you get is you get docked championship points. So I've already had one penalty, which took 10 points off me, which is pretty brutal. But I was fully at fault for it. I think it was another occasion where I'd gone in way too hot. No, it wasn't. I was. There was someone on the straight there, someone on the straight there. So I drafted behind the one that was further ahead, but then I tried to duck out of the slipstream between the car that was in front and the car that was to my left. Tried to get into the gap to get around them, but unfortunately I didn't judge it, and I ended up moving to get into the gap, but I was way too close, and I basically gave him a pit maneuver. So there we go. That's Mexico. I don't I don't know if that's passive aggressiveness or if that's well done, or it's hard to tell. He's giving me a nudge, so I don't know. I don't know whether that's well done, or maybe you shouldn't hit me in the first part of the race. Have it back. Don't know. I'm not sure what that bumping's for. Right, let's see if I can get the plugin to work. Because there's a why is that now lost its icon? Why is it lost its icon? Head movement. I mean, maybe it didn't patch it. I don't know. I'm sure well, maybe when I opened it through Gem Plus it worked, but let's have a look. I don't know if I've put it in the right place. Let's look at the README. Right, so installation, patch file and program exe, and the head movement ENA after it's created. Open the head movement directory. Copy the XML to one of the following. By default, the patch to the bubble head player's cube sets the player's cube viewpoint. Well, I mean, when I try it, what it does is it changes obviously the head moving with the movement of the steering wheel. And obviously, when I tried it with the wheel, I would turn the wheel and it would look to the apex. So I turned that part of it off. So it does say that it's saved to patch. GPL will use the new settings, including the currently displayed cockpit viewpoint and angles. But again, I don't know whether it works, because whenever I run Gem Plus, it doesn't always work. For some reason it screws up the rasterizer. Because I have to get Grand Prix Legends to run. It just won't run the game properly when I do it through Gem Plus. And I don't know why. Every time I try and run it, it doesn't. Because I managed to get it to run it out of windowed mode. No, it doesn't seem to want to. It's a bit annoying. But then when I run it from the shortcut, it's fine. So I don't know. You have to do a little bit of tweaking to get the rasterizer to allow you to get the mouse pointer out of the game, because when I ran it start off with, it just said no. You know, all the usual tricks of using the Windows key or Alt Tab or what, it wouldn't Alt Tab at all. So right, so the last one is Solitude. Now what I think I might do is I'll run the player replay for that, just so that it's not as kind of jerky. But yes, this is the last race of the season. But let's double check to see if the website's working again. But I should definitely archive this myself, so I have copies, because it's the website that's it's archived on. It's not necessarily going to stick around forever. Yeah, it's down for maintenance. So cool. Right, I'm going to take a toilet break, so I will be right back. If I can find the be right back button. There it is. See you in a minute. Ow. Right on the nonce.
Jack, come in. I'm clear of the Australia wreckage.
Are you all right?
Ride was a touch shaky, but I'll manage. Still no sign of popcorn. Nothing on comms either. At this point, all I can do is focus on finding all...
That's better. This is a bad idea. Oh! Ah! No! Told you I'm jinxed.
6 left of a crest, very long, 60. 6 left of a jump, opens long, 80. 6 right of a crest, 50.
I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it.
Slow, 6 left, 30, turn, hairpin right, around Bales. Right long, opens of a crest, into 6 left of a crest, into into 6 right long, tightens cut to gravel.
That was a 6 right, apparently.
And 6 left long, opens over crest, 30. 5.
Yellow flag sector 3. Green flag sector 3. Go on, right side, clear.
What in the hell was that? I mean, I thought I spotted them, and I thought I gave them room, but they thought, no! I'm still going to punt him off. Oh, I had to fall down the gap, didn't I? I'm gonna freaking make it. I'm gonna make it. It's a bloody miracle. It's a bloody miracle.
I imagine navigating a gauntlet of tick-infested corridors would make anyone an expert.
Actually, it would probably just kill them. Either way, well done.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Oh. Neck's a bit stiff. Right. So, what we were going to do was, we were going to have a look at the Solitude replay. Now, it seems that maybe the I'm looking for, there we go. So the moderator of my series back, or the series that I was taking part in back then, was Ben Summers. I wonder whether he was running it from his server way back when. But Solitude, yes, Solitude is a racetrack. If you can call it a racetrack. I was actually gonna look up the information of it. Solitude racetrack. Because I think so it's based in Germany. It opened in 1935. This is according to Wikipedia. I think this is right. Opened in 1935, closed in 1965. So technically it wouldn't have been used anyway for this championship because it's based in 1967. Yeah. So mainly for motorcycle racing, Grand Prix motorcycle racing, German motorcycle Grand Prix, or the Sidecar World Championship, or the Solitude Rennen, which is 1930 to 1965. Now, I thought that it was still being used. It's basically public roads. So a lot of famous people have driven on it. And you are basically driving on public roads. So it's akin to like a small version of the Nordschleife. So, yeah. And again, I don't know where I started. I don't know how this race went. So let's find out. So just waiting for me to get to the grid, I suppose. It says I'm in position 7. Well, I do appear at some point. Oh, it's because that's practice. Silly. I wonder why nothing was happening. It's because that's the practice session. Alright. So, it looks like I'm quite far. I think this is probably going to be 3 wide. Or 4. It's 4 wide. Staggered 4 wide. People disappearing all over the place. So this person here is probably on the cusp of what I should be able to view because there are 4 cars in front of me. So I'm in probably first. So that should be 2 there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe? So we can only guess who is in what position. So Phil Barbier is on the 2nd row. Jakob Schmidt is on the 2nd row as well in a Ferrari. You've got Duncan Hogbin in a Eagle. Joe Bardsley in a Lotus. There's me in a Ferrari. And then you've got Kev Hammett in a Cooper. So that's the only cars we can see at the moment. So we've got Flagman here. Let's see what happens. So the pole man just appears. Bit of an accident there. Did they not see each other? Did they not see each other? Come on, Phil. I think. I mean, he moved over. Maybe he didn't think he was going to be that close, but it didn't work out for Phil, did it? 2 people just wanting the same part of the track. So, oh, well, that's what you get. I mean, I don't know what happened with him. So it wasn't him that spun me around. It was Andy Straw. It's hard to tell what happened there. I slowed up perhaps because of that car there. And then Andy tried to get through this gap, but it fucked it up. And just rear-ended me. So I'm out of control at the moment. But funnily enough, me spinning back around spun him back round as well. So couldn't really do much about that. And this is the last race of a season, and I think just people have just lost their minds. But I mean, the driving standards have always been a little dodgy. So who've I got there? So Mike Cooper is coming around the outside there. I'm guessing I'm trying to choose somewhere where there's not a spinning car. And I just can't avoid anybody. And I'm vaulted over the fence. Now, did I reset the car or did I try? I think I said fuck it. Because getting out from behind that fence, I don't think you can. So, what a messy start. Made it 2 corners. Now watch this for a roller coaster. An absolute roller coaster, this track. So let's go on board. Whoa! So it's a track that you to be fast on it. I think you really have to be confident of where the corners go, and I found it difficult, really difficult, because a lot of it is very similar. So I found that knowing what corners went where was like, or recognise what corner was coming up was very difficult. So it says I'm 7th. I don't think I am 7th, but that was a really messy start. So there's going to be 11 laps of this. I don't know how long a lap is. I think it's supposed to be about 3 minutes. And there is a version of this track for R-Factor 2, but it is a little rough around the edges. There's a few problems with it. I mean, this track, people like Jim Clark. I don't think he was in the Formula 1 car. He was probably in a Formula 2 car or something. But Jim Clark has raced around here. But it is a very unique track. With just its setting. You know, you basically go around country roads in a bit of a forest in Germany. And I think I remember there being a section which has got like a bloke on a lake in his fishing boat, I think. So basically left, right, left, right, left, right. We seem to be attacking these turns, so we seem to know where we're going, at least. But I would presume that a track like this would have a lot of casualties. So we may be picking up freebies a bit later on in the race. And that is a lap. So it took 4 minutes to get around for the first lap. And there was such a thing as, they called it Snowitude, because someone made a winter version of this track. And they figured out how to make falling snow. I can see a car very much in the distance there. I'm not seeing anyone on my rear view mirror. So we're in 6th place. Oh, someone's already come a cropper. Oh, there's a Ferrari without the right side tyres there. So that's 5th place. Who that was? That was Jakob Schmidt. I mean, it's kind of cool that you can zip around these corners going over a crest. It's like a rally course, really. But again, not made for these types of cars at all. So it's a funny choice of track. There's someone just reset in front of me that must have had an off. So that's Kev Hammett in the Cooper. So he's now on cold tyres and a full fuel load. So now we're at the back half of the circuit, which is less flat out and more of just right, left, right, left, right, left. So it all depends on confidence. Some dust in my face. Okay, I can't see anyone behind me. I mean, it doesn't look like I'm hanging around, but I'm definitely not quick here. So I must just not have these corners hooked up. I'm not slow. It doesn't look like I'm going slow. It's just other people are quicker though. I mean, the horsepower of the Ferrari is maybe not the advantage that it proposes to be. We nearly hit the hay bales there. Now, as before, I'm probably stronger at one part of the circuit than he is. You would think that on the technical section that he would be quicker, because the Cooper's probably more nimble. And on the flat out section, the Ferrari is probably a lot more. So you'd think this section with the big flat out parts are probably to the Ferrari's advantage. Oh, there's another car off. It's already gone, either that or it was off to the side there. Strange that he's able to hook up these faster corners better than the Ferrari can. But he's all over the road. I don't know if that's lag or whether or not he's just suffering. But I am gaining on the big long straight. But it's going to probably run out of... Oh. No, no. Whew. I was lucky to avoid him then, I think. Braked but went right a bit too early, So that's 4th place. So after that really terrible start, we're now... I mean, it gave us a lot of work to do, so Joe Bardley is in the twisty section, the same part that I am. So 3:38. And the fastest lap time of the race is a 3:32. Let's see if I can keep this 4th place. So lap 3 of 11. Just want to check the... Yeah, it looked like the patch for the helmet thing didn't work. It's either that... I mean, it says it's on external cameras. No, it's definitely not working. Oh! We are capitalising on people's mistakes. We're up to 2nd now. On lap 4. So where's the leader? The leader, I think, is Derek Jones in an Eagle. There he is. Just going through some of the faster sections. I don't think I win this. So as I say, I was lucky enough to pick up podiums and things here and there, but I don't think I picked up a lot of wins. So being chased by a much faster car. And I seem to remember that obviously in later seasons there were different rules brought in about what cars you could and couldn't take. It had a token system as like a bop, as it were. So throughout the 12 races of the season, you could only take, you had a certain number of tokens. So you couldn't take the Lotus every single round. The Lotus was obviously the fastest car of the lot, and that was worth the most tokens. So you had to think of what tracks that you would run the Lotus on, perhaps. I think the next more expensive was the Eagle, and then I think the Ferrari was the next one. Oh, he's making mistakes, which helps me. So yeah, I don't think that token system came up for a couple of seasons. It worked quite well. It made people drive other cars as well. Because I mean, if you wanted to take, everybody took the Lotus at Monza, I'd imagine. So they saved up their tokens for that. But then you would need to kind of sacrifice some, and maybe tracks that you knew you weren't going to be fast on, you would take a slower car. So strategy was involved. So I seem to have pulled away from anybody. I'm on my own now. Lap 4 of 11 across the line. I keep meaning to go through the the Grand Prix Legends track database and just seeing what tracks are available. I think a lot of people made the historic versions of tracks that wouldn't necessarily be on the Formula 1 calendar because they were already created, of course. But historic versions of tracks around the world that were based in the 60s. And I have a keen interest in content that is for tracks that will run for Grand Prix cars. And there's probably a wealth of tracks that have just been created for Grand Prix Legends and not for a lot else. I mean, trying to take a track that was made for a game that's 25 years old, and the amount of work it needs to take it up to today's standards, might as well just recreate from scratch, I suppose. So we're now in the 334s. The leader ahead of me is doing 331s. So he's pulling out 4 seconds a lap. What? Just saw a flag there. Does that mean the leader went off? Might be a lapped car. Yeah, could be the leader, because he's the only one in front of me. That's one thing about the replay system for Grand Prix Legends was it's probably quite robust, and the fact that you can kind of you skip ahead and it will skip ahead to the drivers that are on the track rather not, you know, in position, which is kind of cool. And obviously formed the basis for what technology NASCAR 2003 and iRacing were based on. Lap 5 of 11. So I don't know where I am in compare. Ooh, steady on there. I must have forgot what corner that was. Forgot what corner that was too. But I've still got, so if I'm going main straight, and Derek's way ahead in the fast section there, I still have my lap times from Grand Prix Legend, because there was such a thing way back called GPL Rank, which is basically a leaderboard way before its time. And there's such a thing as you would have the ability to beat the benchmark times that were set when the game came out. And if you beat those benchmark times, it would mean you'd get like an aggregate score of how many seconds you were below the threshold. That's why if you talk to people about Grand Prix Legends, they might talk about their GPL rank being negative, which would mean that you are so many seconds below the benchmark times. And it was always the thing that you would gain a lot of a lot lap time if you could get a good time on the Nordschleife. Oh, I was so close to the edge there. And eventually I did go negative with my GPL rank. Apparently I got a -4, I think. But I would just be intrigued to see what those lap times are and see if they are comparable to running a similar car on a similar track in a different game. But I'll do that at some point. I've got all of the tracks, as I said, -1. Watkins Glen, there isn't a 60s version of Watkins Glen available for R-Factor 2, unfortunately. But the rest of the tracks, at least the ones that we used for the first season, there is a version of the layout that was very similar. I mean Kyle Army's based on the 1970s, but it's still the same layout. Silverstone's based on the 70s, but it's technically the same layout. If it has the no chicane option. I mean, it's quite reminiscent of a Spa, but Spa that's got a lot more tight corners to it. And imagine that the lap times are not really going to be comparable to what you can do in this game than what you can do in another sim. But it'd be nice just to try. Because obviously the simulation's a lot more complex than it was 25 years ago. Oopsie daisy. But you are racing on completely different, I suppose, as it were, different rules, I suppose. So you're racing on different geometry, and the cars that are available for the 60s, ooh, hanging it out there, are still, they're not going to be close to what we drove in Grand Prix Legends. Different levels of grip, different physics, stuff like that. I was going to say, am I being shadowed? But we just cut to somebody else and they've boned it in the barrier. So it's a very lonely second place. So after the whole season of pretty much ups and downs, I had a win. I've had a couple of second places. But it's been a bit kind of sporadic. There's been races that have been absolute disasters, where I seem to hit everything and everybody. I'm surprised I only came away with probably a couple of penalties. Don't know. I don't know what I got penalised for at Mexico. Whether the stewards actually spotted it or not, because I deserve a couple of slaps on the wrist. But I definitely didn't win the championship, let's say that. But there has been some flashes of racecraft here and there. And obviously at the start having to deal with being on a 56k connection, and I think once we get to the end of the season I'm now on broadband, so it's probably a lot less, I mean, you'd see how the people that would be using 56k on the server so they would be flickering and moving about and what have you, which is always a bit jarring. I mean, I would have at some point updated the driving hardware and did it again. And again. It seems to be a corner which is really tough to remember. And you know that once you get to the pink trees, then that's the last corner there. Lap 8 of 11. Is anyone catching? Oh no, they are miles behind. They're on the previous lap. So even though the start was a bit messy, it seems like the race settled down a bit and over the number of years that I did this league racing, there were other leagues that I joined, which were using the Grand Prix Legends, of course. But some of them obviously had different rules. I mean, I was probably racing against very similar drivers because there were a couple of series that did splinter off from UKGPL, which is this series. But they worked on a little bit of a different premise. I remember we did do our kind of version of Le Mans, or doing multi-class racing with these cars. So you did have access to the F1 car, which is this, and you had what would be the advanced trainer, which was then classed as F2, and then you had the F3, which was the novice trainer. So we pretty much did multi-class racing. So I've got a couple of replays of that. But what I don't have from that is actually the breakdown of results and stuff, because that website doesn't exist now. But I mean, you can pretty much output the results and things from the replays. But it still doesn't kind of show you, whether the stewards gave you a slap on the wrist or not, But it's always nice to see in hindsight, would I have done something differently? And it's been quite cool asking the steward, would you have ruled this differently if you saw it, This being my first kind of major dive into what was sim racing back then. And I still know a few people from back then as well. "24 years later. Getting old." But there's like 3 1967 mods as well to choose from, both in kind of varying degrees of quality. So it would be quite interesting to take the same car and see what kind of lap times you can do in each on the same track, and to see which one you can do the best lap time in. So I might do that on stream sometime in the near future, maybe. I did have plans on because around about the time of I think the 20th anniversary of me starting sim racing, I did think about doing like a simulated series. Well, not a simulated series. I would still be running the races, but we'd just be doing it in a different sim. And I had the idea of putting all of the drivers in from my first league racing and adjusting their stats as AI drivers, but I don't really find racing against AI very fun nowadays. So I can't think that going through all that effort to do that is not going to, get the excitement that I'm after. It'll be a fun exercise, of course, but I just don't think it's worth going through the effort. Because I find AI just too predictable. When you're racing against people, they're fallible. They have weaknesses, and I think that's sometimes what I prefer about online racing, is just the fact that you're racing against. I said to someone when they kind of were trying to understand why the racing is so enjoyable, and I said, well, like you're doing fast moving chess. So yeah, you've got to be able to drive the circuits, but then you've got to think of how to overtake somebody. You've got to do well at reading car body language. That's, I think, the bit that I find the most satisfying. When you've been following someone lap after lap and you've figured out where you're quick and where they're not quick, and I mean, it's satisfying when you can actually, all of your hard work gets paid off if they make a mistake. I mean, if it's obvious that they've made a mistake because it's something that you've done, then that's all the more satisfying. But lap 10 of 11, that's penultimate lap. We're down to still the 3:35s-ish. Still 5 seconds off the pace-ish. 4 seconds rather. You do wonder what, a friend in the community was talking about what would happen if a developer was kind of let loose on using today's technology but making what this game is, like a game dedicated to the 1967 season. It would obviously be graphically better, and physics should be better, because in fidelity and feel, and what would happen if you threw everything at it? You could have more effects and wet weather and exhaust and time of day. But it wouldn't be financially viable, of course. And you do wonder whether, obviously, to make a game based on real world stuff, it's just so expensive nowadays because manufacturers have cottoned on to the idea that, oh, you can make a game with our stuff in it and use it as marketing and what have you. Why don't you pay us to have our cars marketed? They've somehow been able to wrangle that. You pay us for our promotion. I mean, it should be technically the other way around, really. They should be paying you to promote their cars and tracks in a game. I mean, maybe it happens in that way. There's probably like a reciprocal relationship. You can imagine trying to get the licenses for these cars. It must be so difficult to try and retrace who owns Cooper nowadays. You know, who owns BRM? How do you get the rights for that stuff? I mean, there's still cars or manufacturers like Ferrari and Lotus, which would have like really expensive license costs. And I mean, back then, they allowed their likeness to be put into a video game. There was only 2 manufacturers that couldn't get signed up, or the license just wasn't available, and that was Honda and Cooper. So they were put in the game as I think Murasama was Honda and Coventry was Cooper. And I imagine there was a couple of drivers that probably wouldn't allow their names to be put in there either. But you imagine that you can be able to do that nowadays. Having this, because obviously Formula 1 owns this now. Well, they did own it then, technically. But they are very tight on their brand. So having a game based on the 1967 series, you maybe have to contact all the heritage organisations and stuff that keep these cars alive. I mean, I've always thought that, sim racing is a good way for others to appreciate what the real cars do, but also before the cars that are basically, some of them, there's only a couple of them in the world that still run. Particularly cars from this era, because we're talking, what, if it's 67, we're talking over 60 years old, if I've done my note. 50 something? Yeah, something like 57 years old. Near enough 60. It's a way to archive these machines so that people of the video game generation can appreciate them, Not every car is going to stick around forever. It's like tracks as well. And I think they've decided, now that the technology is available, every time they make changes to a circuit, right, let's laser scan it, put it into digital. I think the same should be done for cars. So this is the last lap. I don't think I'm anywhere close to anybody. So, still that Lotus that's all over the road. That's Phil Barbia that's in 6th place that we're coming to lap. Well, we're not coming to lap him because this is the last corner. And that is the end of the season. And you can see in the cockpit I've got my arm up. There we go. It was a good touch that they did with the game with the arm thing. The only way you could kind of signal anybody is with putting your arm up. And obviously you can't change your gear if you've got your arm up. But there was a thing where I wondered if, because other cars have the gear shifter on the left-hand side, but putting your hand up is always your right hand, so I wondered whether they could still change gear when they have their hand up. But, so that was Solitude, and that is the end of the season. How about that? Bit messy at the start, but we managed to keep it on the road and round out the season with a 2nd place, it seems. Which isn't too bad, is it? Not bad at all. Not bad at all. As I say, I did most of my season in a Ferrari. Unfortunately, the server's not back up, so we can't see our results. We're just going to have to double check at another time. Just checking messages and things. So, so the other leagues that I've got replays of, I did try and get in touch with the owner of simracing.org.uk to see if he's got replays of the GT Legends and the GTR replays. So what would be like sports car stuff that I did way back, so because that would have taken me to around, it's when I joined leagues in 2005, 2006. I don't think I have the replays of them. I've looked at my backup discs and things, but I don't seem to have those. So as I say, I've got so I've got things from 2001, 2002. Thankfully I put all dates on them. So 2002. Did we really only do one season of that? Surely not. Alright, so I can plonk all of my replays back in the right place. So that was season 3, which I think was 2001 to 2000 to 2001. Unfortunately, I don't have the dates on these files. Although it does have a modified date, so maybe I could put the dates on it from that. So season 4 apparently starts in October, 28th of October 2001. So it's nearly exactly 24 years ago. That only has 6 rounds in it, and I can't think that that's right. Because we did 12 rounds in our first season. Maybe they switched to a 6-round season. Because I think it would be a pity if we missed out any. But I've literally only got 6 rounds. 1, 2. Yeah. For season 4. Season 5. I've got 5 rounds. Season 6. Supposedly there's nine rounds. I'm missing a couple out of that. I don't have round 4 or round 8. I mean, my friend Ben Summers might have like things to fill in the gap here. There's definitely replays I just don't have. I either forgot to save them, or I didn't take part, or... But I won't know that until the results come back. I'll have to wait till the actual... the thing. So what I was going to do was... just going to open R Factor 2 just as an example. Because I was going to create like seasons, because I've got particularly the so let's say for example I've got Kyle Army 1976 there, and this from what I'm aware, there's 3 mods. I've only got 2 of them installed. Oh no, I've got 3 of them installed. So the 1967 season, which is F1 Legends Racing. So I would have been racing in the Scarini. We've also got the F1 1967 series, which is here. Car body configuration version 1 or version 2. Hard to know what the difference is. What difference in mirrors then? Kind of prefer the silver mirrors. Gosh, it looks pretty, doesn't it? I don't think the rim should be that shiny, but the tyres look rubbery enough. But look at the detail in the engine. That's just stupendous. I love it. I love it. So that's the 1967 series. I think that's probably the most up-to-date one. But there's one called the F1 60s series. But I think this is more fictional. So again, you got Lorenzo Bandini there. I don't know how similar I mean, it looks very similar, doesn't it? But I think this is an older mod, because everything looks just a touch squarer. Same person that made it, but they had a different ethos behind this particular mod. This is more the 60s style. So you could create your own 60s car. So you could say, I want a car body without a pipe, car body of a Honda, car body of a McLaren, whatever engine you wanted in it. Cosworth V8, Cosworth with cover, Honda V12, and then you can change the nose type. I mean, I just thought this was a brilliant idea. This makes so much good use of the upgrade system, which is kind of very, very unique to R Factor 2. And I mean, the maker of the mod just did pop into my stream once, and we had a little bit of a chat about how to get some of the customization things working. And he was saying, well, it just didn't take off. People just weren't interested, and I'm just thinking, why? This is a brilliant idea. It's a brilliant idea. You know, if you were to run, if all the parts had like different slightly different characteristics to them, you'd build like a Frankenstein monster of a car that's kind of still based around what was around in the 60s, because he's done several different versions. He's done like the 60s style, and he's done the 70s style, and I think he tried to start the 80s style as well, but he said, well, no one was really that interested in it. I'm just like, why not? It's bloody awesome. I mean, I'd still it got a big lump there for side pods. I don't know what's going to be in the side pods back then. It's probably fuel tanks, isn't it? I think they're doing wheel mirrors. And then you'd have a different helmet style, which unfortunately doesn't show in the showroom. And then you'd have different, maybe see the dash types from here. Different dashboards. And then different tyres. So you've got Goodyear, Firestone and Dunlop. It's such a great idea. Such a great idea. And I mean, following on from what I was talking about, you know, if a dev was kind of let loose on making a game based on the 67 series, but you know, what we've found is that in the sim racing market now, sandbox games just aren't a thing, you know, because I think they leave game companies open for cease and desist, you know. So the modding platforms that were actually proper modding platforms, where they're actually built so that users could create content, I think manufacturers have like kind of looked at it and say, well, you mean users can create content, our intellectual property, and put it in your game for free without paying us a cent? We don't like that. And I remember talking to a dev from R Factor 2, and they were saying, well, we really had to, you know, when we were trying to broker deals with paid DLC and, you know, getting manufacturer support and stuff like that, they really had to grease the wheels again, as it were, and talk to these manufacturers and say, well, yeah, I know that the game did, you know, have some of your intellectual properties made by users in the past, but we're going to kind of turn the page on that. do you want to work together to have the proper thing in the game with full, your full support and, proper, accurate stuff, true to life, whereas, a person that makes a mod might just be like, find some numbers on the internet. It's not guarantee that they're all going to be right, or they have to fill in the blanks for some of the numbers. So yeah, but could a dev make an open-ended piece of sim software? Is that kind of thing financially viable? I mean, the end user wouldn't really care in some respects if their mods came from a manufacturer's port or not. I mean, you can guarantee that if it's come from a manufacturer, then the numbers are right. You would hope, rather than some random dude on the internet that learned how to, make 3D stuff and to tweak a spreadsheet. Not to say that the mods that were made that way are bad. I would just kind of say, well, the one that was manufacturer supported is always going to have the most accurate data, But yeah, I just don't think that is going to ever happen again. I don't think a game manufacturer would be able to market a sim and say, right, it's open, it's completely open to user created content, because it's just going to be a hacker's paradise. Content from other games. That was another thing as well, is that the people from devs from certain games would kind of say, well, yeah, I know that our game has had content brought in from other games into our game, so technically piracy, but we'll draw a line under that. But again, I think the days of a modding platform are probably numbered, because it's just not financially viable. What it would need would be a very passionate dev with a lot of money and to be able to build every kind of have a versatile physics engine that would be able to support any kind of suspension setup. And maybe an approachable way of making a tyre. Who knows? If I've always said that if I win the lottery, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a studio that's going to make a sim, but just throw everything at the wall. It's going to have every single thing that you can imagine. But pipe dream, it's never going to happen. I'm saying it's never going to happen because obviously if you say it's never going to happen, it might happen. But if you say you're going to win the lottery, you never do. So yeah. So this one's also got 68 presets as well. I mean, doesn't it? It's just a thing of beauty. This is something about cars from that era. They're just like, it's beautiful. So I assume that the ones that are without thumbnails probably still work. So they look a bit more like IndyCar. But look at the amount of detail and texture work, and it's It's just beautiful. And you have to think, well, you wouldn't necessarily have a market for things that are from 60s based racing either, because people that were alive in the late 60s, as if that was their growing up, what they would watch on TV, you're talking that they would be maybe born in the 40s or 50s. So they'd be in their 70s and they'll be nowhere near a sim rig. So you just couldn't market it. Because, I mean, the joke is around like the sim racer community that people just will swear that they want things like this, like classic cars and what have you, but what they really want is GT3 cars. Which is just oversaturated. You know? I find these cars more fascinating just by the creativity, you know. They were working with so little. Everything's kind of out in the open. And then you get to the 70s when they were start using aero and stuff like that. It was just such a creative era. So you got the F-160s, and they did make like the 1984, but they only had presets of this one. Right? But I don't think they ever did like the 80s custom cars. I mean, to try and get the body parts of the 80s cars to fit together would be rather difficult because they do differ quite a lot. But isn't it beautiful? So I remember, maybe it was the same person that made these mods, I'm not sure. Back in the R Factor 1 days, I mean, no one made use of the credit system. That was kind of bypassed really, really quickly because people were kind of sick of things being kept behind a credit system. They wanted to play everything right away. So cheats were put in so they could get unlimited credits and then they could just buy whatever they wanted. I mean, it was a nice idea in theory that you could possibly set up that you had a certain number of credits, and depending on how many credits you had, you could buy certain parts to put on your car. You know, faster engines would cost a lot more, so you'd have to balance that with wings that are more efficient and stuff. So you'd put together a Frankenstein's monster of a car, but the credit system would contain what someone could spend on their car, and they just had to get the best parts or the best combination of parts to go as fast as possible. But it could be bypassed so easily. You just couldn't police it. I don't think. You just couldn't. You couldn't guarantee that the person didn't have a unlimited credits that they were spending. You know. I mean, in some respect, you'd have to have the admin to go through it and say, well, this person's using this, an upgrade. Does that go over budget? But I don't know. It's too much admin work, really, isn't it? Too much admin work. But you can see that the roll bar is actually enclosed within the bodywork there. I think technically these cars are as accurate as they were in '84. I mean, where this guy gets all of his 3D information from to be able to build all of the bits and bobs, I don't know. I mean, this car's beautiful as well. It wasn't the most it wasn't the fastest one in '84, but it's still all the kind of the starting of the appendages and things. I remember that in 1980, it was either 84 or 83 that Ferrari really started, you know, doing weird things with wings and stuff, because they eventually had, for one race, they had an off-center wing. One side was more pronounced than the other. They were doing really creative things about that. But now the rules are locked down so much that creativity is pretty much banned. Creativity not allowed. And if you do show some creativity, it's like, yeah, no, we're going to stop that. The rules are always are made in such a way that they're so grey. They're always interpreted a certain way. And weirdly enough, they named it completely different. So got F160 and F180, but the 70s version's all the way up here. Or was it? I don't know where he put it now. Yeah, the 70s version of it. Oh yeah, open wheelers 70s style, just to screw around. He did make like a sports car version of it as well. I think there was supposed to be a sports car version of it, but he's made sports cars from 69 all the way up to 78, which I thought was kind of cool. Look at these monstrosities. I've driven them a couple of times. I don't like how they drive. Too much power for me, I think. But these were weird and wonderful machines. Kind of the Can-Am kind of era. I mean, look at these weird things. That's a Can-Am car. I mean, I think I've seen that Porsche in real life. Some mattress. Oh, that's the old. Yeah. So maybe at the weekend we'll have a play around with our cars and tracks of the 70s. Because as I said, I've got like, so Kyalami is there. Zandvoort is called Sandeverd 67. We've got Spa 1960s. We've got Rouen 1955 to 70. I don't think that's the right one. That's 1.0. Is that the right one? Sometimes people put them in different categories, fortunately. It looks like that's the right one. So you've got Rouen. So you've got Silverstone. Now I've got Silverstone 70. And I've got Silverstone 75. So that's one point. That's one with the chicane. I'm sure I had one without. But I don't know. I don't think that Silverstone 70 is going to be a very good one. Just from because it's 0.2. So it's going to be graphically bad. But we can have a look at that. I'm intrigued to know what 4 means. Let's see how bad this Silverstone version is. I'm sure there was a version of Silverstone without the chicane. Maybe I'm thinking of Assetto Corsa. Ooh, it does look a bit shoddy, doesn't it? Ooh, yes, I think this is a bit shoddy. Particularly because the wall is going up and down like that. What's going on? Oh. It's got a luminous grass. So I'm guessing this track hasn't been updated in a while. Textures are all over the shop. If I remember rightly, when I was trying out some tracks and things, some of the tracks were just so old that some of the it was like some of the geometry, like the horizon and things, were just so I don't know, uncomfortable, I think is the word. Particularly in VR. On the screen you might not notice it. Yeah, we can definitely say that that version of Silverstone is not really usable. Which is a shame. I'm sure there's a 60s version of Silverstone, but... So... Silverstone. So I've got so Nürburgring. That's an updated version of the one that's on Workshop that we used in our league a few weeks ago. I don't know if Mossport installed. There's a version of that somewhere. Monza will be this one. Don't have Watkins. And Mexico. That's the one we just ran tonight. And saw it somewhere. Solitude. Why is it down the bottom? Below Z? I don't know. It was a version of Solitude. So I'll have to see if there's a Mosport on Workshop. Steam, where are you? There you are. There's one that was updated in 2020. Is that the most recent one? Let's check my track database. Oof. Where's M? M. Mosport Park. Got 3 versions. 1.03. It does say that Steam, it's got... Yeah, that must be it. 1.03. We'll just have to subscribe to that one then. I mean, it's apparently stayed the same since 1961. It's not going to look the same graphically with banners and what have you. There's a couple of other versions by someone called Bella Valco, but I can't remember that. But the other one's by a track maker called Senior Man. Normally is quite good. Right, okay. That was Wednesday. We did our last season 3 stuff. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Kind of bearing with me while I do these trips down memory lane. It's always quite fun to take a trip back in time. So check out my socials and my schedule. I will be streaming next technically on Sunday, where I'll be doing league racing. It will be my next round of the WEC Championship, and we will be heading to Sao Paulo, I believe. And that's on Sunday, but maybe I'll take Saturday as doing some 1960s stuff. So that should be fun. And other than that, the week after we're doing so that takes us to the 3rd of November. The week after I'll be broadcasting another round on Sunday of the Super Formula Championship. So that'll be round 3, and that will be at Autopolis. So that's me behind the microphone rather than behind the wheel. Last round at Suzuka was pretty fun to watch. So yeah, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on Saturday. So have a good rest of your day.